connection here between the user stories and requirements and processes. So connecting the dots. For this to happen, you need to understand the business, and that covers the processes, the activities, the tasks, the roles, the competencies, the systems, all those sort of things. Once you got the designs or the definitions sorted, you should start executing them. And this is a big gap in many platforms, but here is a very easy way to connect the definition to the execution side. And then on an ongoing basis, you want to improve and request changes as you go on and as the business evolves. So let's step into Glue, and this is what we will be covering in Glue. This is a Glue stream, so let's go to Glue. And then lastly, what I wanted to say is, when we finish with the presentation, please, if you're interested more, reach out to me so we can arrange access for you so you can give it a try and maybe even do a little bit of a workshop with me. I'm going to go into the product now. Wait. So, all right, so yeah, I'm in Glue. So Glue has got a very easy front end. It's very easy to use. I just built this little navigation for myself. So the first thing as part of understanding is you need to understand your process landscape. You need to understand which processes are part of your business. And here you have this company overview. You can configure this in many ways. In this particular way, I've done it in an APQC sort of standard. And here in the bottom, I've got all my end-to-end processes as well. This you can also show as groups. So I can very easily see the groups. This is just a short HR area. Here you can see I've got my categories, 4 groups, and then a process in each area. I could have multiple processes in each of the groups. This is just to make it easier to understand tonight. I can also show this in a list. And this list I can show in a hierarchical mode. So here I've got going down in all my processes, all my process owners, and so forth. But I can also show this to see how things are connected. So here I've got processes. I can see, okay, which activities do they have? Who are the process owners? What are the roles? And do they have any components like systems and things connected to it? And there you can see more detail. So that's using your architecture or your process landscape, showing how things are connected. From here, I can dive down into the processes. So what I've got here is a small example of a typical business process in most companies, managing employee requisitions, and then you've got manage employee orientation and deployment. So from here, I can jump right into that process. If I open it up, here's the process. Very easy, very neat to follow the process. I've got my roles here. So if I click on a role, I've got a very good description of the role, and I know which people are involved. In my case here, for the example, it's few people, but that's whatever the roles and the positions were with list here. I can also, from here, jump down to the responsibilities. So all the people in this process. So I can see here all the people. And I can go and look at an individual person, for instance, here, a business analyst, and look at their competencies. That's their competencies against the competencies set by the role. So the role is the target, and then this is the actual competencies of the individual, for instance. If I go back to the process map, now the detail sits in the description of the activity. So at this activity level, so let's say I want to draft a job requisition. Here, I would have work instructions. But here I can see I've got to complete a job requisition form. And we'll get back to this one. So I can jump to it. There's the form. So that's the physical form that I have to fill in. And I don't have to go and download something. I can do it in Glue. So these forms are created in Glue. And that will move with the process as a case. When I go here, for instance, to screen applications, I suddenly see many things. Let's jump from here. Let's go to this side here. So let's say screen applications opens up the activity, and depending on how many detail you have in the activity, it builds a table of contents for you. Very easy for end user to follow the work instructions. And this functions then as your standard operating procedure. These things in blue are reusable assets in Glue. And I build these things up. I'll show you a little bit later, but that's what you build up, which you reuse across the entire process landscape. So you actually describe all the content in words, but you reuse the assets all the way. If I go back to the application, to the process, this process got the same capability. If I go to Explorer, yeah, this is at the process level. Now I can start seeing I've got forms, I've got many things associated to this process. With other words, I've got policies, yeah, background check policy, I've got systems, I've got the activities. If I go to the activity, I can go and look at the work instructions of the activity very easily. I've got the connected processes to this process that I'm working with now, in this case, employee requisition. So the next one is the deployment. So in other words, the orientation of the employee and deploying them in the particular areas. So very easy to do that. So back to the process map, make it slightly smaller. But now I'm jumping now from the understanding of the business, and now I'm going to go into the execution of the business. What happens if I do have a need for a job in the company? Instead of writing a lot of emails, I can simply say, no, I will run a case. So I want a new case. I'll start the case, request job position. That's the built on from the process. I've got the case. I can start the case. I'm not going to do it now. I've got cases here already on the side. If I open it up, yeah, I can see cases connected to this process. I can filter them and I can find them here. And in terms of the filters, I can see from sales side, they're requiring this, IT requires this job, and. And this is now how I can manage this requisition or these requisitions from different people based on a process. And this could be any process in the company. I'm just using one example now. So if I go into one of them, for instance, here you can see marketing assistant required. That form was completed, and there's all the data for the form on it. If I'm a new employee or something has changed in the business and I need to give instructions to the teams on how to work, then they get the notifications all the time. So yeah, I've got a new, this one hasn't started yet. So this is now, I want a user experience specialist. It's in the IT camp. Open it up. I've got the form. So now I've got to fill in this form. But if I'm not sure how to do this, like I said, I might be a new employee in a team. I can look at my work instructions. And to my work instructions, I can follow the work instructions and I can do it. So that's a way of running the processes as cases. Going back up here again. So let's say I go to the next process, because this is the employee requisition process. Now you've got somebody on board. Now I can go to the make employee orientation and deployment, and I can go to that process. I can navigate to it very easily. So I've got this process now. So here, for instance, I've got conduct employee feedback. Here's a work instruction. Again, there's a form that is used. How do I get feedback from my employer? I could also connect this to recurring tasks so that this thing fires maybe every 2 months or 3 weeks or whatever after this event to poll and to find out this information, and it will actually come back against this process and you collect all the data. the data stays in Glue, and you can view the data, and you can manipulate the data, or you can export the data as well. So that is touching on the execution side. If I go back up here just to refresh the minds. So I did a bit of understanding now, and I did a bit of execution now. Now, if we go to the improved side, this is where, on an ongoing basis, you would like to be connected to your process owner in a business environment, as well as the teams that function in that particular area. So if I go back to that process, should I go here? Now, if I go to the feed, I can see requests that have been forwarded. This one is closed already. This one is in review, and so forth. And here you can see requirements. I can filter them also in terms of, let's say, suggestions. That's the requirement term in Glue. And now I've got all of these improvement proposals connected to Glue. So if I go to the activity, I can see where the activity is, where this requirement is occurring, and there it sits. How Glue works, if I go back to the process now, I'm not going to do it now due to time, but if I do changes on the process, so if I go to edit mode now, you will see there's two suggestions, so two requirements. If I now go and implement these changes on the process, because in reality, you will have to change the work instructions once you've implemented, i.e. new software, new policies, new guidelines, new forms, whatever. So you would have to change the work instructions. When you change the work instructions and you go into the area of creating a new version for Glue or the process, it will automatically ask you which of these suggestions have been ticked. And then you select them, and then they are part of the release. You don't have to do all of them. It could be that you've only done one, so the rest will still remain. So in this particular case, I've got these are open, so they approve. And if I cancel there and if I go back to the feed, and if I look at the ones, suggestions and the status of implemented, nothing implemented, but I've got a lot of suggestions, one closed. All right, so that's an easy way to make sure that anybody in the business can actually log change requests. And that's very easy as well. So when you go to a particular area, so let's say make job offer, and whoever is the user in this particular area, let's go maybe, this is good, let's see here. Yeah, I don't have too many users in this particular space. Let's see here. Yeah, I've got only me out there, but it's fine. So whoever is using this process now in the real business can now go and leave a comment. They can add to their comment. I'm not going to save this one. They can add systems. So let's say regulations that they want to change, systems, applications, or whatever. So let's say the system needs to change, and so they can write it in English. And then they can share it. That lands up here on the feed, and the owner of this area with the editor that we had on this process, if we go to the roles again, the responsibilities. So these two work together, and then they say, yes, this makes sense. Let's make it a formal suggestion, and then you take that suggestion through the life cycle until it's implemented again. So that's the basic idea of running processes as cases, recurring tasks, forms, and then a continuous basis of feedback. Show you another example. This is now one that we had was a very HR one. This is a typical system thing where more administrator type role. So let's say opening a new store. So this is a store opening based on a Microsoft Dynamics supply chain environment as an example. So I've got this administrator over here, I've got this inventory manager over here, and so forth. These are the process flows, for instance. And if I look at the cases, I need to open a store in Caledon, Kenton Park, Admalo, wherever. So I can see where they are. And also the same principle again. So if I have to open the store, it's allocated to whoever is in this team. In my case, I'm doing all the work here. That's not true. It's just because it's a demo environment. So yeah, I've got the checkbox in terms of what did I need to do as an administrator. If I go through the process, and you look at the first step here, for instance, you will notice it's quite a lot of things that happens in this first step. So I have to do system settings. I have to do under system settings with all these things. Then I've got to do product categories, product attributes, and so forth. So here I can jump to them. I can see the relevant screens. It could be videos. It could be whatever. So this functions then as the work instructions for the individuals in that particular area. And it's a live thing as I showed. So with other words, everybody that is connected here is connected, including the business analysts, all the people in doing the jobs down here. And this facilitates ongoing collaboration on a continuous basis so that you have the possibility to get feedback every time as needed. Yeah, and then what I also wanted to show is what I like about the product is that if I go here to the capabilities, it's got standard integration to many things, Microsoft Teams. So if you want to integrate Teams, you want to see all your notifications in Teams across various process owners, that's easy, you can do it. Integrate to SharePoint, file picker, API integration, Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, and so forth. Here in the API thing, if you want to integrate with something, you can actually test your API over here. If you open it up in Swagger, you can see all the calls that you can make. With other words, if you want to put information in Glue or get information out of Glue, very easy, very understandable, and so forth. So yes, I think what I wanted to get across tonight is that process management doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be expensive. And it could be something very useful if it is geared towards your end user community. And I think I'm going to leave it open now for questions. Oh, the last thing I wanted to actually say, this is also important, managing your end-to-end processes very easily to do. Here I've got an order to cash example. So then you can see all the processes connected for this order to cash. And from here, I can jump into them and I can go and do those processes. So this is the leads process, managing leads, going into accounts receivable for deposits and so forth, notifying your production environment. This is a manufacturing example, warehousing connected, and so forth. So all the processes, all the people, and if you start exploding this, there are a lot of people behind all of these in real life. So then you have this capability where everybody is on the same page, and if anything changed, everybody knows about it. I'm going to stop there now. So I'm going to stop sharing. Open up the questions.
Okay. Thanks, Etienne. I think we've got quite a few questions here, so I hope you're all geared up and ready to dive into it.
Let's see.
All right. So the first one I have here, and I think it's quite important just to like set that scene there is one, what is glue? And what are the advantages, disadvantages? Just like a short summary around that. And how would that differ from many of the other BPMN systems? You know, what way we as analysts take us into glue?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, I did a very deep analysis of 7 products last year. I can share this with individuals if they contact me. It's all on the spreadsheet with graphs and stuff. And I guess it depends on your departure for a tool. So if your departure is for a nerdish type theoretical application that does conform, for instance, to BPMN, UML, Archimate, all these things, then you would select tools that can do those things. If your departure is you're selecting a tool that has got the ability to cross boundaries in a complete enterprise, that's what I did. I wanted something which would been in this role for many, many years as the head of business analyst and all of that. And I always struggled with this whole thing that why does it have to be so complicated? And I use all the best tools out there. They were all good. I was talking to many of them. Very, very good tools, very expensive tools, but they were designed for people like me, nerds. They weren't designed for end users, managers, team leaders, and people like that. So the focus with this exercise that I did was I wanted to find a tool that could be useful for anybody in the business. The way I did it is when I did my studies, I got a small group of people, an HR executive, an operations person, a finance person, and I did the same process in 7 products. I then had meetings with them and I displayed them not on the same day, all different times. I took them through this. When I got to Glue, they all said, Oliver, we can use this. This we can actually run your business with. We can manage your teams. So all other products can do this, but not, I don't think, with the same ability across the whole enterprise. So most of these tools usually is done in pockets, and you have a bunch of business analysts doing these things, and it's a once-off, and it's gone, and that's it. And I think that's the answer for me. This approach is basically, you could also say, a digital standard operating procedure based on processes, something like that.
Mm.
It's a practical work thing on a daily basis. Hope that answers it. I'm not knocking other tools out there; they're all good. Um, Depends on what you
Yeah.
want to achieve with the tool.
Yeah, and I think that automatically because I also have experience, you know, with errors, and that leads us into the next question, which says, how easy is this to share and to open it up to your audience, you know, for a client to review or your project team to review and to do all those validations. I mean, how it seems quite easy from what we've seen, but maybe if you can just elaborate on that, because I know some of them are very complicated. I mean, you have to extract
Yeah.
it as a PDF and then it goes over like 20 pages or something like that, rather than displaying it in the tool itself, because there's licensing components attached to that as well. So maybe if you can just highlight.
I will. I will. I'm not sure if they're listening now, then they must forgive me, but I won't name the consulting company. But I got a process from a consulting company recently, which they've done for a client. It's actually the process I used tonight in the example. Their end-to-end or their process for requisitions is 23 steps, 23 activities. Now, if you put 23 activities on a screen, it becomes complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes so small, it's not readable, number one. So it's very difficult to understand. And the reason is Blue separates activities and tasks. So tasks are underneath the activities, and you can model those as forms and all of those things as I showed earlier. So your work instruction level. So I could actually cut down that 23 activities to 8 activities in Glue, just because of that. That was the big advantage. So it's much more usable than to see at the end of the day. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, I found that when I present glue, this is now at the current customer where I'm working at. I had a meeting with senior people, executives and senior people, and they have a current solution. And then when I presented this to them, the same reaction: we can use this. This is easy for us. This is practical. And I think that's the key thing. It takes out the it's like the tools are designed by business process people who are nerds for nerds. They don't design it for the end user. And Glue is not a modeling platform. It is that too, but it's a management platform. It becomes a really a digital handbook of how your company operates, and that's the difference. It's something you can actually do. For instance, my wife is a dietitian in a healthcare business, and they've got units all over, and they've been looking at this as well. Because currently, the way of doing it is share drives, Google, emails, all these things, audits. Now with this, you can run the process. You can have audits, which is forms that actually pops out to people. They can fill it in. You can check it on a daily basis. You can look at the deviations. I didn't even touch on KPIs. You set your KPIs on the process. So with other words, what do you expect the duration for activities to be? And based on the actual result, it shows you the deviations very easily. The last thing I wanted to say is if you're a distributed environment, and this is typically true for consulting companies, but also for uh, businesses that has got a group, and the group has got a lot of brands and things underneath it. And each brand could potentially have a different branding and flavor of their processes and their work instructions. So Glue makes that management of a master to slave very easy, very well organized. So all of that, I just think, is the simplicity. It's also when you're in the tool, there's such a lot of help in the tool, and very well structured. So when you get stuck and you actually press the help, it opens up at that area, and it's very well structured in terms of giving you help. But the tool itself is really easy to master. So it doesn't need a. I know there's a big bank with a green background in Johannesburg, and they've got more than 5 people as administrators and people running the ARIS environment. You don't need this in this environment. So yeah.
Yeah, so we can gather is like it's very user friendly. It's a user friendly interface. There's
Yeah.
intuitive design capabilities there, which can also then facilitate your day-to-day tasks, as a process analyst and also as a business analyst, of course, because you can capture all these different things and then
Yeah.
populate the document side of it as well.
Yes. I didn't even touch the AI side of it. They call it the Glue Assistant. So it's also very neat. But the prompts are very good because you configure the prompt before you actually run the prompts for the type of business that you're in. So you would say you're a retailer or you're a bank or you're insurance, and this is the size of your company and stuff like that. And then based on that, the results coming back, let's say for roles or competencies or activities or job descriptions or whatever, is much better because it focuses on that type of industry for the results that it brings back. So that's also very neat, also very nice.
Okay, so I guess that would also then answer a question. Well, we've got a question here around, does it support process mining? And from what we've heard thus far, anything actually. It depends on on which side you sit and what type of information you want to get out of it. Would it work for
Yeah,
that?
it's a good question, but you must remember, if you think about the question out a little bit, with process
Mhm.
mining environments, you need to get the data of activities that have been performed from source systems. That's where you get the event logs from. That's what data mining or process mining does. In Glue, you generate the timestamps because you run the cases. So you actually execution platform with its own data mining capability in it, because you have all the data connected to it, because you actually not manipulating, you're generating on a daily basis the cases. And I didn't show that now, but it's got all the timestamps of different people. Let's say this simple little requisition process that I showed now, but this process could potentially have run in a few places in the country from different areas or groups or whatever, different teams. And the standard says it should be X. And then you can see the difference between all the other teams, because it generates the data for you as you run a process. So you have the data daily. No, not even daily, you have it instantaneously of what has happened. So it doesn't rely on historical data. You create the data, you create the timestamps. I hope the answer makes sense, because it's got the execution side of it. And also I want to clarify that there are many people that don't use the execution side because they run big ERP systems and whatever. But even if you run a big ERP system, in most cases, the process layer on top of it is fairly divorced from the underlying ERP application. So you can still connect it in terms of getting people to actually understand what they need to do. So the process layer is very relevant even in the ERP environment. For instance, in the Dynamics 365 environment, when you want to implement a thing like CRM, for instance, I can bet you if you've done Microsoft CRM before, you can do that in many flavors, depending on how your business wants to run CRM. So it's good to have your processes. Accounts payable is another one. HR is another one. Supply chain is another one. So the process layer is very important, so the two can work seamlessly together. That's the one thing. And the other thing is there are tons of processes in a company which don't run on ERP applications. Your governance processes, your way of working, your SDLC, your all these things that is GRC type processes, those sort of things. You can use Glue then to actually run them as well. And that's actually what happened with me last year with this big financial company. They were doing GRC processes, and it's very, very, very complicated processes. And there were funny things in there. You know, one of them is what you do when you suspect a terrorist organization is depositing a lot of money into that area or that institution, and how do you handle it then? So now there's a nice process definition of how to handle it. But you have to rely on people to go and read the process to understand what they have to do. In the Glue environment, you start the case and it will run. It will notify everybody. It's got the work instructions with it very easily. So yeah. Anyway.
No, it sounds like an interesting topic there. Is there any limitations that exist, when we talk automation? When we refer to what the automation of processes, what can we expect there? Is there something specific that stands out?
Yeah, it's an open question, I guess, because in my example, I actually didn't show it now. Yeah, I was not too nervous, I guess. But when I went into the process, if you think about it now, if you have a decent HR system, then you most probably would have a digital requisition form as part of the self-service capability of an HR platform, like Microsoft Dynamics 365 and so forth. We all know these things cost money. So the self-service modules might not be rolled out everywhere because you're a very large company. Now, to save money, sometimes they don't deploy the self-service capability everywhere. In this example I showed now, so I had my digital form for the manager requesting a new role. And what I had in there was a Power Automate, let's call it bot, that would take the data out of Glue and import it then into, let's say, Dynamics HR, for instance. So that's where you would use the automation capabilities, is to push information from Glue into tools or applications, or get information out of areas. For instance, the area where I'm working now, we're going to integrate Glue with Jira, for instance. So you've got the suggestions now, which is the requirements. But the developers have got their own cycle in terms of sprints and things where they actually realize these things. So instead of retyping all these things, you would integrate with it using the Glue API. Take those requirements from Glue with the connections to the processes activities, put it in Jira, and in Jira it will run until it's executed. But then in the Glue space, like I said earlier, to make the process changes, because if the developers have changed the code, you would have to go and change the process logic, even if it's only the work instructions, because something has changed now. It's not the same anymore. So let's say it is, I don't know, a banking app, for instance, and something has changed on the banking app, and somebody needs to open an account or whatever, and there have been changes, those changes will have to reflect on the process, and the requirement was connected to that. When you release that process now, and you tick that it has implemented that particular requirement, the two go hand in hand, and it's all versioned, and you see it on a continuous basis. So the audit trail is always there.
Yeah, that definitely. I think I had an earlier question around the versioning, around these, and how easy is it to get back into the history. So that's quite important.
It logs everything as you go, everything, even at work instruction level. And then you've got points where you can make a formal version. So you can say, you want to release a process now. We know it's going to change in future again, but we want to work this way now for the next 6 months or 3 weeks or whatever the period is. Then you make a formal version. And you can include, it actually's got a long list of all the changes, and you can go to the versions and you can look at the previous one, and you can restore them by a click of a button. If you said, no, we want to revert back to this one, and then you just restore it again. So it's pretty easy to do it.
Yeah, so you have that real-time collaboration, but you then also can go into the history if you need to retract any of that to then continue with your...
Yeah, you can see on the screen, you can see the differences, and then you can say, wait a minute, we actually have to revert back to this one based on conditions or whatever, legislation or whatever the changes. Yeah.
There was a question here around the process framework, and the example that was used is there similarity or a match to ETOM?
It's not, you can use ITIL, ETOM, SCORE, APQC, doesn't matter. You can build that in Glue. The structure is there to do it. So the example that I have now was an APQC one, but in the customer where I'm working now, Deloitte did a whole process architecture for the company. It's more than 800 and something processes, a lot. That's going down to, if you talk classical, level 1, 2, and 3 processes. Now, that's a massive spreadsheet, which the company did, the consulting firm did. Now, that was imported. So you import that. So, that was easy. So if you've got something which is properly structured, you can import it if you follow the normal breakdown structures of, groups, processes, activities, tasks, and stuff like that. So that you can do it. So no, there's no limitation there really. I mean, I've done SCORE and I've done ITIL, and you can do 2 frameworks in one deployment. I mean, if you think about it, the IT guys might want to follow ITIL as an example, but the business guys might want to follow SCORE because it's supply chain, whatever. So you could combine it.
Okay.
And it's also ring fence. You can open up Glue. Very specific. You can allocate the processes, or you do allocate the processes to business analysts, and they can work in that area. So you can make sure that your content doesn't get corrupted. So, with other words, let's say I've got people, and you can also make it private. Let's say you've got some really funny stuff, which I don't want everybody to see, and that area could be private. So,
yeah, so the governance and the security. you're talking about the
Yeah,
security.
yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, I don't want a marketing guy to come and work on my finance processes,
Right.
for instance.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the other way around as well. So then you can ring fence it. So my
Okay.
sales processes, I want the sales guys to own, and it's got touch points to finance, to accounts payable, for instance. But the accounts payable process is under a different owner, a different team, and they run with that area. But the two work together on an end-to-end process level.
Okay. So you sign those different roles and responsibilities and those different access levels. You build that whole
Yeah,
taxonomy around it. Okay.
yeah. So the system has got all the relevant roles, and then the users, and then you connect users to the various roles, and then, as I said earlier, the roles have got the competencies and required competencies, and then the physical position in that role has got the actual competencies, so you can track your skill levels and things like that in terms of competencies. So if your whole process is made up of people with very limited competency, you're not going to actually have a very efficient
Mm.
process, even if it's nicely modeled. So, yeah.
And maybe that also links a little bit to, once you've assigned the roles and the relevant resources to the different projects, how about the use of the task management feature? Is there something, so you can fit that into your project management to manage this as a whole in terms of the life cycle of that specific project? Or
Yeah, I'm doing that now, and unfortunately, it's now confidential. So I can show you on demo. But in this program that I'm working now, we've got people doing things. And for instance, I built or defined the system development lifecycle for this company in Loon. So we run that as cases. So then we've got phase one, phase two, phase three, and things like that. And in a phase one, for instance, there are 16 processes, for instance. That 16 processes is maybe distributed, let's say, between 5 people or whatever. Then
okay.
on Glue, you can track and see where people are in terms of their work, because it's just like a normal case. So you can use Glue for that area. That's like the way we work type scenarios. So that's the one side of it. The other side is the recurring task or recurring activities. So let's say, for instance, you want the system, and that's my example, which I had in the tool, which I didn't show tonight, is let's say you want to prompt line managers and team leaders every 2 weeks or every month to find out and figure out, do they have a requirement for a new position or job in their team? So you want to prompt them. So you can
Mm-hmm.
set up include recurring tasks with forms, with work instructions, and that thing runs until you stop it, or if you put an end date to it, so it will do that automatically. That can be for that scenario. It could be for audits, many things where you could use this. Inspections, for instance. Let's say you have a bunch of people that need to inspect power utility infrastructure on a regular basis. And because Glue is distributed, you can execute these tasks from a mobile device with all the connected information. That's very easy. So somebody can get in a truck and something and go and do their job, and they can tick their tasks and if they don't know what to do because it's changed, they can see, oh, this thing has changed. We have to actually put this and this in or whatever. And they get notified about the changes. So it's really a practical. I think that's the big thing. It's practical. It's not a theoretical product. It's very practical.
No, it definitely sounds like that. I think, from an analyst's perspective, maybe if you can point at some technical aspects that we need to be cognizant of, when we start engaging with this tool, is there?
What do you mean technical? More detail.
So technical, if you look at maybe from yeah, okay, so we do process mapping, data management, collaboration, maybe integration, customization, some of the analytics.
And the integration side is technical, but it's very well structured. So if you if you have somebody as a development team or something available, it actually exposes, it gives you all the API calls to use the calls. So the developer can then integrate it with your application on the other side.
Okay.
Not difficult to do, but it requires a bit of technical skills. But the tool enables it. So you don't have to build anything in Glue for that. The tool exposes that. For instance, if you want to take data from Glue into Power BI, it's not going to build the Power BI dashboards for you. You have to build your Power BI dashboards and how you want to see it. Because every customer wants to see the things differently. So yes, one could argue you can build a standard Power BI stuff. We probably could. That's one of the things I've been thinking of doing, is to have a standard set of Power BI dashboards. But I've been in this game also very long. Every customer wants to see it differently. So all the data is there, and you can then manipulate it already in a thing like Power BI, for instance. So yeah, there was something else I wanted to say and I forgot now. But yeah, it's so from that point of view, but integrating to things like SharePoint and Teams, and that's very easy. All the instructions are there and how to do it and how to configure it. That's very easy to do. I would say the most difficult thing is the API capability. For instance, if you have to get information from Glue to SAP, for instance, that's not something a normal BA would be doing. You need to talk to the SAP programmer on the other side or whatever, or vice versa, from SAP getting it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Tell me, I'm not sure if we covered it earlier, but I had questions around the licensing.
I'll get to the licensing now. So,
okay.
My business is now, I'm a very small business. So I've partnered with Glue in December, and I'm building it up now. And as you all know, we talked about it earlier before we started the session, these tools and things are very expensive. So I need a CRM capability because I need to manage my leads and things. I need a finance capability because I need to manage my contracts and invoices and stuff like that. You know the answer. Build the processes in Glue and I run it all in Glue. I invoice my customers from Glue, and I manage my leads and my sales cycle in Glue. That's it. Yes, if you're a corporate and you've got a big CRM capability, you won't do it that way. But I would still argue you could still put the process on top of it. Because I've been in an environment where the sales guys across a whole team, everybody did it differently. Because in Microsoft, it's not so easy to follow what you have to do. There's so many fields that you can actually do. But in Glue, you would actually be able to put in governance and tick boxes and say, did you do this? Did you do that? And the tool will stop you if you haven't actually acknowledged that you did the right things. Have you captured the minimum information, for instance, or the required information? Licensing, yes, not for free, unfortunately. So you need to pay for it. So there are two licenses. There's a pro license and a starter license. The difference between the two is a pro license is for the audience we're talking to tonight. It's the typical business analyst type role. It's people that would design the business logic in Glue. And that license is usually you would have, your business analyst community using those sort of licenses. And then you've got the starter license, which exposes all that logic to all employees in the company, and where they can actually execute, give feedback, see their work instructions, see their tasks, manage their tasks, and so forth. I also forgot in the demo now to show you the dashboard, because in the beginning of the tool, you have a dashboard, and the dashboard is made up of either a worker, for instance, or a process manager, or you can have your personal view and so forth. So it becomes a working platform because it shows you there what has changed, what are your tasks, what are your work instructions. So when you open up the tool and you log in, it only shows the things relevant to your role and your position in the company. There was another question. I didn't read it. I couldn't read it.
Oh, there was one more around the integration into existing workflows.
Yeah, I think I've
Strategies.
covered the integration. It's got
Yes,
the capability to do it with
yeah,
all the APIs and things and webhooks and whatever you want to use to do it. Power Automate, for instance, you could do it. So yeah, the capability is there.
definitely. No, this really sounds like a very capable tool. One of our colleagues had an interesting. She says, "Glue is the glue for the process." So
Yeah, we think to
I think
say
that's
glues
very
the business
relevant.
together. If your company does your company need a little bit of glue, if it's broken here and there. And
Definitely.
this morning I reacted to a LinkedIn post which was published by Glue in Denmark. And they've got this thing going now to say why you need process management. And yeah, I commented there, and this is a bit naughty, but we all in this audience can probably test it tomorrow if you like. My question is if you're a team leader or manager and you're running a company, your team within a company,
Mm.
test yourself tomorrow. Go to any team member, not the most expert one, anyone. Go and stand and sit next to that person. Say, show me what are your responsibilities. How do you have to do your job? Do you have any tasks against your job description today? Can you show it to me? Most people won't be able to show you because
Mm.
it's just not there. With Glue, it would be very easy. So, I'm a sales representative. These are the things I have to do. These are my work instructions. You can see I've got 4 leads that I have to follow up because they're against my name. As simple as that. And that I
Yeah.
think that is the beauty of it. It's really enablement. I hate sounding like a salesman, but it is really good.
No, it definitely sounds, and I think once you start interacting with it, it becomes a little bit more easier.
Yeah.
As always,
So
you.
again, yeah. So if anybody's really interested, I mean, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. Let's have a discussion. We can organize a demo account for you. I can take you through it, help you with a particular use case that you might have in your business, and then
Mm.
you can get the experience of it.
Definitely. I think we've got some of your details on our slides as well, so we'll share that. And I think that brings us to the end. I don't see any further questions unless there's anyone in the audience that has something to raise. We've got like 1 minute left. You're welcome to quickly do that. If not, then thank you so much, Etienne. I think that was absolutely great. I love new tools for me personally, so I really would want to get my fingers in there and get some analytical stuff out of it. So thank you really for the time and interacting with us. It was good. I think everyone really enjoyed it. If I look at all the questions and then that interactions we've had. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really also thanks for the opportunity. You're a nice bunch of people who set it up. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, we've got a whole team that works together, and yeah,
I
we're
forgot in the
glad we could
beginning to
engage.
say is the song. I didn't hear the song very well on my side. The Money song from Pink Floyd. I chose it deliberately because with Glue you can make money and because you can save money. Because you run your businesses more effectively. So there you go.
Absolutely, that makes sense. The glue sticks it, right?